Welcome to the Purpose and Profit Club podcast for nonprofit leaders, mission-driven creatives, and social entrepreneurs. Get ready to stop dreaming and start doing. Here, ideas become action. We prioritize purpose and profit. You ready? Let's go. Well, hey friends, I have a treat for you today. I'm sharing a recent workshop I did called Best Year Ever, because isn't that what we all want for our business or nonprofit? So you're going to hear me teach this workshop all about creating the best year ever, the big mistakes that are keeping you from getting more donors or supporters online, the 3 most profitable actions to focus on in 2023, plus the top trends to grow without using Facebook ads, right? You ready? You with me? So you're going to hear me in the chat, calling out the names, asking questions in the chat, because this was a recording from a live workshop. I love to hear back from you. Let me know what resonates with you most. And don't forget to leave me a review. Your reviews matter. I read every single one of them and it keeps me pumped. I know I'm giving you the content that you want to see. All right, let's go. I love seeing everybody who is saying email. I love seeing that, because when I think about organic marketing, I think about email too. So I think about the trifecta that it can't just be social media. Like, to rely solely on, for example, Instagram to just be your marketing strategy, I'm not a fan of that. So I love seeing that you're prioritizing some other platforms, particularly that one, because that is your platform. You own those email addresses. So if you want to go email 3,000 of your subscribers today, you can, versus if you want to contact 3,000 of your Instagram followers, you're going to need to put some Facebook or Instagram ad dollars behind that, right? To reach all of those people. So I love seeing that, Mona. Okay. All right. So we are going to get started. Let's see here. Okay. 3 things. I'm going to share 3 steps with you to increase your organic reach, your organic marketing strategy online this year. That is the name of the game, to make it the best year end ever. Okay. So a couple of things that I'll walk you through. If you do this, if you follow these 3 steps, I am confident, 150% confident, you will see your revenue increase, you will see your followers increase, you will see your subscriber base increase. So your subscriber base could be that email base, right? 100% sure. I want you to use the chat today. I'm going to ask you questions. The more you stay engaged in the chat, the better. Okay, so please use that. Take notes. There will be access to a replay, 7-day replay, so you'll have access to that. You're going to hear about one of my courses today, Amplify Social Impact. So I know some of you have already been in it, and I know some people are new to it. So I'm excited to see this mix. So you'll hear about that too at the end. Okay. What else? Let's start. Let's start with the first step. This is the first step I want you to take. And all 3 of these steps are going to go, huh? Like, I want them to make you go, really? Okay. The first thing I want you to do this year to make it the best year and the year ever is this. I want you to go outside. Go outside. And here's what I mean. I mean literally and figuratively go outside. So I want you to stop creating content online and expecting people to just find you magically. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Have you all been there before, where you're actually creating social posts, or you're actually creating some sort of bit of content, a blog, something like that, and no one's reading it except for your mom and your best friend, right? That is this. Okay. So even though you're physically doing work, you are taking time to do work, I want you to stop doing it. Stop doing it that way. I want you to stop blogging and telling no one about it, right? Blogging, you're spending 2 hours writing a blog, 2 hours doing an action that is technically marketing, and then not broadcasting it anywhere, okay? Another example of this would be spending lots and lots of time to, for example, create a monthly giving program, create an amazing name, an amazing tagline for it, maybe even a cool logo and some cool fonts, and then just expecting people to join and then being frustrated when they don't. Okay. Is any of this like, are you getting what I'm laying down, where it's like you're creating content, but nothing's happening? Here's what I want you to do instead. I literally want you to think about going outside. So going outside might actually mean going outside, like going into the world or just getting outside of your bubble. So one of the things that I teach in Amplify Social Impact is this concept of a digital ambassador program. Now, I consider my ambassadors a couple of different ways. I consider them digital ambassadors that are just peers that love and are passionate about what it is you do. And I also think of digital ambassadors as influencers, okay? Online influencers, social media influencers. This is a method, I call it the social street team. When you have a social street team and you have that new blog post or you have that new video you posted on Instagram, they are the people literally championing that up for you. They're sharing it on their own networks. They're creating their own posts for it. They are sharing it to Instagram stories. They're posting it on LinkedIn, wherever they like to hang out, TikTok. So for my friends that already mentioned a younger demographic in the local college town you're in, right? They are the people. So instead of you being like, let me create and start this TikTok, maybe it's your social street team that is actually doing that for you. Maybe you're helping by creating the content for them and they're sharing it, or you're giving them what they need to effectively talk about your organization. Type a 1 in the chat if you're like, okay, I think I'm kind of getting it. And a 2 if you're like, tell me more, I need more information about this, okay? Okay, so social street team, ambassadors, influencers, they help kind of bolster you up. All right, I'm gonna keep going for you, Tim. Okay, instead of doing some of the things like I told you, which is the concept of, if you ever saw that movie, I think it's from the 80s, I don't know, Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. Remember that movie? So he like, the whole concept, he builds a baseball field, right? And it's kind of like that. We expect that with a lot of our marketing. We expect that with a lot of our marketing, where it's, we create this social content, we create this amazing communications piece, this beautiful website. And you're like, where is everybody, right? If you build it, they won't come. Okay, that's not true. That is a myth, right? Like I want you to remember, if you build it, you have to invite people to come. And it's the same thing online. So you have to invite people to come and hang out with you. Okay, and you do this in a couple of different ways. You do that with a really effective street team, with a really effective digital ambassador program, working with influencers. Influencers are those people online who have engaged audiences who already know, like, and trust them, right? There are those folks who already have those audiences. And when they partner with your organization and share content from your organization on their networks, their audience is already engaged, plugged in, and listening. It's a warm lead at that point, okay? Because they're basically endorsing what it is you do. That's really, really important. Likes on Instagram don't matter if it's not helping you fundraise, okay? You with me? So if you're creating all this beautiful content and you're seeing some likes, it doesn't matter if it's not taking the hand off to help you fundraise, okay? I'm curious, tell me in the chat, is anyone here doing this? Is anyone here right now, have they started working with ambassadors online? Have they started working with influencers online? Have they dipped their toe in stepping outside of their bubble, of their platforms, your organization's platforms and channels, and instead partnered with other people that already have audiences to do this, okay? If you've done that before, tell me in the chat. I want to hear about it. I want to know. If you're curious about it, we're going to talk more about that, okay? So I have had organizations do this at every single level. You might be at the 100K level, the 500,000 level, the $1 million+ level, and it works for every single one. Because you might be at the startup level and you can get that community focused local influencer, local ambassador to advocate and champion for you. Or you might be at a wider level and you can do that same thing where there's an alignment with what it is you do. We have a lot of animal organizations, right? So that's a cause that a lot of people are passionate about, and that's national, right? That might be a national hook, right? So there's a lot of ways we do that. Okay, I love this. Mona says, well, how do we find these influencers? I love that question. I taught a workshop last year all about this, all about influencer marketing. And one of the questions that I developed this workshop around was answering that question, because one of the things that came up for a lot of the nonprofits I work with is, yeah, this is great and all, but I don't get who I would ask. Because my example is always, I'm not saying you take this workshop and then go pitch Kim Kardashian. That ain't it. That is not what I'm saying. Yes, she has a lot of followers. That's not it though. I would rather you go pitch an influencer that has some sort of hook, alignment, heart, something that makes sense with your audience, right? There has to be something there. And that's what we did in that workshop. So we talked a lot about finding those people. You know, if you serve food insecure households, a natural one to kind of noodle around on is, well, what about chefs? What about local chefs? Those are two people that care about putting good food on your plate. Okay. So I have a workshop that will tell you more about that. All right. I'm going to go through here. Okay. I love this. I think it's, yeah. Megan says we're interested in working with influencers, but I think for us, it comes down to budget. I love that you brought that up because I didn't even have that in my notes, Megan. And for me, this is in kind. Okay. This is not, you know, the maker of this mug saying, hey, dear influencer, will you please endorse this for your audience? No, we want this in kind because we are seeing this trend. We're seeing this trend with young people. They have these hyper engaged audiences and they also want to give back. They literally, not in a cheesy way, want to make the world, their community, a better place. So the hook is simple. The hook is very simple if it's the right person, and they will do this in kind. The challenge that you want to make sure of before you just do this wildly and kind of off the cuff, it has to be easy. It has to be easy. It has to be fun. Otherwise, you're going to see a lot of churn. And I have that in my notes to talk about here in a second. Okay. All right. Some other ways to think about this, because I said Facebook, I said Instagram, we even said TikTok. That would be a great person to partner with, right? But I actually want to even go further outside, right? On that theme of going outside. Okay. What about thinking about going outside of your bubble by guest podcasting, going onto podcasts? Again, I'm going to go back to the folks here who are taking care of our animals, right? So we have the animal shelters. Like what are the podcasts that exist that serve that community? There's probably so many that I don't even know. There's probably like dog training podcasts and kitty. Oh my gosh, there's probably so many kitty trick podcasts and how to, you know what I mean? There's probably a niche for all of y'all. And there's probably an engaged audience somewhere with a podcast out there that is specifically aligned with what you do. So it doesn't even have to be on social media. It could be a podcast. Guest blogging, the same way. What I'm trying to give you is how do you get in front of somebody else's audience to go outside of where you're at, okay? Type a 1 in the chat if you're like, all right, now it's starting to make sense. Okay. Caroline said, we had an ambassador program when I was in-house at a nonprofit, but I don't think we supported them properly. Yeah, exactly. We made a lot of asks and didn't provide enough value back to them. So this is kind of interesting. So my soon to be, I don't know how to do it, cousin-in-law, my cousin's fiance is an influencer. She has lots and lots of followers online. And I asked her, she was one of the people that I said when I was creating my courses, I want to know what it's been like for you to be pitched as an influencer. Have any nonprofits pitched you? And I loved our conversation because she said yes, which I was surprised. And she said 2 have pitched me to like share something about their fundraiser. One of them didn't make sense. It didn't align with her values. The other one did. She cares a lot about animals. She was like, yes, I'm in. I'll totally do that. And she did the thing and they gave her some done for you images to share and things like that. But what was so interesting is she said that she never really heard from them again. So she had actually a positive experience sharing, helping, promote this fundraiser, helping promote their cause. And she actually would have been happy, I think, to have been part of their community. You with me? Like to actually be, I'm an ambassador for XYZ organization. Like this is a cause I care about. She would have been happy to have that alignment. It dropped the ball. It's kind of like dating, right? Where she was like, is there going to be a second date here? I thought we had a connection. And then you're kind of just ghost each other, right? It was just like that. So there's a lot of opportunity there to like develop that so you don't see that churn. Okay. Now, here are some examples of, that was my like go outside figuratively. So we're going to go outside and still like in the 4 walls of our home in this example or our office. Now I'm going to talk about literally going outside. And in marketing, this would be the grassroots part. So I want you to think about the way that you talk about your organization in your day-to-day life, not when you're at your office, not when you're at your co-working space, not when you're at home in your home office, wherever you work. But I mean like when you are at your kids' PTA meeting. I mean, when you're going for a run at the gym. I mean, as you're out and about, do you even talk about your mission very much? Beyond, like, do you assume everybody knows what you do? Do you assume that your neighbors and your friends you go walk your dogs with, do you just assume that they already know what you do and have heard enough, and if they were interested they would have gotten involved? If that sounds like you, I hear you. Tell me in the chat, I want to know. Because what I see is, especially with my private coaching clients, is we assume, especially if you're a founder or a leader, all the people in my network already know what I do. I've told them before, they know. And that's not really true. When I started, I guess, my second business, this would have been back in 2011, I hosted, or I helped out on one event and one wedding. And both things, I was like, holy crap, I'm never doing this again. Fast forward, like 9 years later, I ran into somebody who I am friends with online, who we are connected on Facebook or wherever. And they were like, how's the event planning business? And I was like, what are you talking about? Oh my God, no, I don't do event planning. No. And that was such a great light bulb moment, because I was like, oh, they've put me in a bucket of like, she's an entrepreneur and could do some events in Atlanta. No. And that's on me to be like, and it doesn't have to feel like weird or boastful or salesy, which I think it might come across to you as. It just has to be like, this is what I've been up to, and I want to tell you about it. There is a way to do that that feels good and feels natural. So think about that, okay? And when you are out talking about it at your son's PTA meeting, the part before the principal comes and talks, or whoever comes and talks at those meetings where you're like chit-chatting with whoever you're sitting next to, like, you literally can talk about it then. You know that, right? Or when you're at brunch with friends and there's a bigger group and you haven't seen them in a while, like, you literally can talk about it then. Think about what you want to say. Think about what that call to action is. Like, do you want people to follow you on social media? Do you want people to, subscribe to your newsletter? Think about what it is. Don't just say it lightly. Don't just say it softly. Don't just be like, oh yeah, I work for a nonprofit. Like, say it compelling. Be like, if you want to learn more, I'll add you to our email list. Like, do it often. Okay. So you literally want to go outside. Other piece of it is, think about every single person on here, 100%, has somebody in their world, like their best friend, like their neighbor across the street, who you're like, 100%, Christina, they know what I do, I promise. But there is somebody in their circle of influence, in their world, who would be a perfect fit donor for you. A perfect fit. Somebody was emailing you about board member for you, a perfect fit person in your world, and they haven't made that connection. That is not their job. It hasn't even occurred to them, right? Think about that. That is like, what is that? Like two overlapping circles? Like, what is the middle, right? And those are the conversations that you can have. There's a book that Jeff Henderson wrote, and I love this line. I was messaging him about it recently. He says, who do you know that I should know? Okay, it's just taking that concept. Who do you know that I should know? That is organic marketing at its best, right? And then saying, hey, would you make the intro? Is it uncomfortable? Yeah, probably. Does it feel a little clunky and weird the first time you say it? Maybe. But is it worth doing if you want to have the best year ever and see your revenue skyrocket? 100%. Okay. I want to read this. Megan says, I'll admit, I think that a lot of times, but as you said out loud, I realized that it's not true. Yes, I think you were referring to the part where you're like, they already know what I do. They're already up to date on my spring fundraiser. No, they're not. No, they're actually not. They're not up to date on your spring fundraiser. They are not up to date on anything. The amount of people that signed up for this class in the last 4 hours is the perfect example of that, right? You guys are busy. We're all busy. It's our job to invite people in, to remind them what we do. And if they want to get involved, amazing, right? It's not our job to say it once and to say it softly. Okay, let's see here. All right, second step. That was the first step. Okay, I want to hear that. Okay, I'm going to answer this question. So Kelsey says, how do you have a casual conversation without sounding like you're selling something? Okay, Kelsey, are you comfortable? Would you be comfortable just unmuting so we can chat for a second?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me, so let's talk about that. What does your organization do? And tell me, let's talk about a fictitious or real life situation tee something up for me where you're like, okay, I don't want to sound like a weirdo.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a completely free organization that offers transportation towards people. And a lot of people feel like it's a scam or that it actually has costs. And so when we say that it's free, people automatically are like, oh, this is a scam, and they won't answer. Or like I'll reach out to someone who I know could use our service. But they're like, oh, it obviously costs. And so I just feel like anytime I go and talk to anyone publicly about it, it sounds like, you know what I mean? It's hard to explain, but it does sound like
no, you explained it perfectly. So here's what I think you need. I think you need something called social proof, and I think you need endorsements. And social proof is just what we're doing works, that your thesis is working. So like, these people need transportation access to this place, and here are some common uses of it. And then you literally need, and this is where your ambassadors could work really, really well. You need people to say, raise their hand and say, I use this. This is awesome. This is legitimate. This works. And if they would be willing to share that on TikTok or willing to share it wherever, that will help give, that's basically like a third party endorsement that's missing for people. Cause they're like, is this for real? Right. And if they see, oh, it's getting some traction, it's getting some buzz. I see that other people are talking about this and saying, not only this is interesting, but I've used this program before. I've used this service before. I think it will give it some validity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
The other piece you can do is sometimes it helps when say you're just talking about it with a neighbor and they're like, what is it? What? I don't totally get it. Sometimes it's helpful to like actually have a couple of stories to root into. So for example, like the story I just told, like, I'm like, okay, one of the problems I saw was that people thought I was planning events, just like this time that happened to me when I ran into my friend Megan, and she thought I was a wedding planner, right? If you actually pull a story and you're like, just like Megan. Now, Megan, let me tell you about her. And this is her situation, just high level. It will help paint the picture of like an actual human being that helps further validate what you're doing. Does that help? Okay, you're unmuted, but I'm gonna say yes for you, or you're muted. I'm sorry. Okay, I see you in the chat. You said yes. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're gonna go to the second step. So the first step, you got me. We're literally gonna go outside. The second piece of this is what I call goodbye rear view mirror thinking. Okay, rear view mirror thinking. Rear view mirror thinking happens, and this is on my mind, I think, for a few reasons. One, because it's the beginning of the year. One of the things we naturally want to do is audit last year. So we're going to look at our data. We're going to look at our metrics. You may do this for social media. You're going to do your impressions. You're going to do your click-through rates. You might be doing this for email. That's what we've been doing in my email marketing class, is like looking at that, right? But I want you to think about this. If you only look backwards while you're moving, you're going to run into a wall, okay? And if you're on the follower side of this, and an organization I follow, their entire marketing strategy is just going to do what worked really well last year. As a follower, as a subscriber, I'm going to be super bored, okay? Because I'm like, you already did that. You already said that. You already posted that. You already did that. So what I'd like you to do is I want you to take what worked from last year. I do want you to continue doing that. I want you to go forward with that and have an open mind and have curiosity so that you can sprinkle in some new strategies. Like that is so important, that you're not so stuck on doing what you did last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Once a week, I have to drive my son like northeast in Atlanta at a just like traffic time central. It's whatever. At this point, we're just kind of used to it being trafficy, right? It's almost an hour drive, 45 minutes, something like that. And what's really interesting is I've lived in Atlanta almost my whole life. I lived in New York for a few years, but for all intents and purposes, I've lived in Atlanta for my whole life. And the way that I go to our destination for his practice is different almost every single time. And it's because I'm not thinking, well, I know exactly how to get there because I've been there 1,000 times, which is true. I'm thinking, how do I get there the fastest? How do I reduce the most friction and stress? Like I literally want to get there the best way possible. So I'm using the Waze app instead of Apple Maps. And I'm finding myself going through these neighborhoods that I've never been through. I'm driving by houses, going down streets I've never been through in Atlanta because of this. That is forward thinking. That is how we do. It's like, yes, I still got my eye moving north. I still have my eye on the goal. I still have my eye on the destination of where I want to be. And that's what I want you to bring forward from last year. And how am I going to do it differently this year? I'm still going to arrive there, but what ways do I need to bob and weave to reduce friction, to reduce that stress along the way? You with me? Okay, great. So here's what I want you to do. You're gonna review the data, review the campaigns of what worked, what didn't last year, bring forward what you want to, okay? But remember, your audience doesn't want regurgitated of the years past, okay? This is the next key piece. And this may be the most uncomfortable piece that I tell you throughout the entire workshop today, okay? I want you to double it. I want to double the frequency of what you're doing, okay? Double it. This doesn't actually have to mean more time. This just means less thinking about it, less planning, and more action. So for example, I would love to know in the chat how often everyone is sending out their email to their list, an email to their list, whether it's a newsletter or some sort of update. How often are you sending something to your list? I see twice a month. Okay. Once a month. Okay. How many online fundraisers are you hosting in a year? So how many Giving Tuesday-ish fundraisers are you hosting in a year? Anything on online fundraiser? Okay, I'm seeing once a month, 6 times a year. See here, once a month, a lot of once a month on the newsletter question. And then I'm seeing for the online fundraising question, I'm seeing 3 to 4 a year, 4 to 5 fundraisers a year, 4-ish. Okay, this is the lowest hanging fruit. We assume that everybody is going to be inundated and annoyed with all of our online fundraisers and all of our emails. And the truth is that's definitely not the case, okay? Most of your audience, even the ones who are your most engaged subscribers, customers, donors, they're not seeing it. It is so easy to host, and this is crazy. Like, let your mind just percolate on this. You could host like a 2-week long online fundraiser that you're like, ooh, we knocked it out of the park. I am exhausted. That was amazing. Wow. And you could have one of your best supporters totally have missed it. That is possible. Why? Because they're busy. Why? Because they're working long days. They got kids running into the room. They're getting bings and tings everywhere. Like, it is so easy. Same thing with your emails. Like, if you're doing once a month emails, I really want you to consider doubling it, right? So I want you to do it twice a month, okay? The more, if we can like look at an upwards line, the more often you have any sort of outreach to your audience, particularly email, particularly hosting fundraisers, things like that, the more you will see your revenue increase too. Those two things correlate, okay? Oh, but won't people unsubscribe, Christina? Okay. Some people will unsubscribe. Is that worth it to you to grow your organization, to grow the amount of donations you get in the year, so you have more yeses and maybe you see some more nos? It's worth it to me. It's 100% worth it to me. So think about that. There is a way that you could host 10 online fundraisers a year and do it in a way that didn't feel like too much on your end and too much on your followers and audience's end. Because the thing is, we're not positioning these online fundraisers as January's fundraiser, let's raise $5,000. February's fundraiser, let's raise $5,000. Oh, now it's time for March's, right? We want to change them up. Like, who are they for? What are we doing? What's the campaign about, so that they're interesting? Okay. One of the organizations that I work with, we noticed last year as a trend that the founder of the organization, who's now retired, and somebody posted about his birthday. And the amount of traction they got in their community, oh my gosh, happy birthday, happy birthday. People sharing memories of when this organization was just community-led, grassroots from the ground up. The amount of people sharing memories on this one Facebook post, I said to the ED, I was like, we're doing a birthday fundraiser next year, right? Like, there's so much here. Let's do a birthday month. Like, that's its own standalone thing. That is very different than the audience that comes out of hiding for Giving Tuesday. Okay. All right. You with me? That makes sense? Is everybody, how does that feel? The idea of just doubling, the idea of just doing more. How does that land with you? What do you think your audience would think? And I do want to give you this caveat. Do not do this. Do not say, Christina told me to post double. So now I'm going to take that graphic I created once and I'm going to keep posting it again and again, or I'm going to send that same email again and again, right? So think about that piece. Okay. Okay, I love this. Tim says more good news seems easy. Okay, yes. More asks seems a bit much. You can put them together. Okay. So you can tell the stories that are educational, aspirational, updates, good news, and have an ask in there. I got a solicitation in my email recently that was so interesting. I'm already a monthly donor for this organization. And they were like, you give a little more and here's what would happen. And I was like, I couldn't I? Like, it was just like, so many of us wouldn't do that, wouldn't dare ask somebody who's already a monthly donor to actually increase it. And no one called me, no one did that. They just did it naturally in an email. I was not offended. It was totally fine. They were able to paint the picture as to why. Okay, so that is part 1 of the Best Year Ever workshop. You get to hear part 2 on Thursday of this week. I'll share the rest of the episode with you. For now, get to work on making some changes. Get to work on the pieces that resonated with you most today and start putting those into action. I'll see you soon. If you believe in the rule of reciprocity, just like I do, take a quick moment to rate and review this podcast. I would be so grateful. Tag me in a post on social media and let me know what you think over at Splendid Consulting. It helps this podcast show up in the feed of other change makers and social entrepreneurs just like you. Think you've reached out to everyone in your network? Are you out of ideas to get noticed and get funded? I hear you. That's why I'm giving you a chance to steal my prospect list. Yes, you can generate leads for your nonprofit or impact-driven business. Grab my mini training and list delivered to your inbox instantly. Go to splendidcourses.com/prospect.